So we're going to just change the content slightly now. We've been focused on tech-life balance. And what we're going to do now is talk back again, as we were earlier today, in well-being. But well-being that's really simple and accessible language. So please can we welcome Ali Canavan, the well-known lifestyle columnist with the Daily Mail and other various media outlets. Ali Canavan, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I would usually start with a few deep breaths, but Chris has just been through that with you, so I won't put you through it again. But the reason why I usually start all my talks with just getting everyone to just sit and just be for a minute is because usually I ask people in the room to put up their hands and how many people actually take the time to just sit, breathe and be. And I'm not talking for 20, 30, 40 minutes. I'm actually talking for 2 or 3 deep breaths a day. And we have the research that it also decreases your blood pressure and heart rate, but it has so many other health benefits. And we're going to start with my story. And it's very poignant that I start with breathing because about 50% of us don't really use our breath properly. And it's the most powerful tool we have. It's accessible to all of us all the time, and it's free. And what's better than that? And no matter where you are and no matter what you're doing, you can access it for yourself. So I started modelling when I was about 15 years of age, and I went straight to Paris, and I represented Ireland in the Supermodel of the World competition in Las Vegas. And a little bit before this time, I had been struggling with, I suppose, what you'd call low moods and moodiness, or what my sisters used to call, oh my God, she's grumpy again in the morning. So I didn't really, nobody ever named anything for me through those years. Nobody ever said to me, you've got anxiety or depression. But I remember I was first started to be medicated when I was flying a lot, and I remember saying, you know, I feel really nervous and I feel a little bit lonely, but I think in reflection, I was probably just nervous, flying alone, entering such a big industry. And what happened is I started to be put on Valium and Xanax and antidepressants. And I was told a few years later that, you know, it was just the way it was, that most people would be on medication for most of their life. And that was just it. And I suffered from low moods and kind of deal with it. But what I did during these years was I was always searching for an answer and searching for that in a new therapist, a new counsellor. So when I moved from London to New York, there was 2 things running side by side. So I was always a spiritual soul seeker. I've been meditating for about 20 years, and this took me on a wide variety of very interesting journeys, on lots of retreats with lots of meditation teachers and lots of yoga classes. But running directly alongside that was a self-destruct mode. And I was very lucky, I suppose, that I was in the fashion industry where parties were freely available to me 7 days a week. And the kind of behavior that I was using to escape from myself was condoned. It wasn't condoned by my family, which is why I always ran away. And the only time that I could get relief from me was when I was out on a Friday night and I was drinking, and when I was like on party mode 24 hours a day. So even though I knew that this kind of lifestyle I couldn't sustain for very long, because really what happened was I needed the highs to be higher, but then the lows became lower. And what are we all looking for? This state of balance. So I returned to Ireland after breaking up with my boyfriend after 7 years for a week, and that was 6.5 years ago. And I went to the doctor and he said to me, you're pregnant. And I said, no, I can't, because I'm just after breaking up with my boyfriend and we're not getting back together, so I'm not pregnant. And he was like, no, I think you'll find you actually are pregnant. And what I thought was, one of my worst days turned out to be a turning point that has saved my life. And every time I say that sentence, I always get very emotional. So my son is 5.5. And I say that I just wrote a book for new moms called Minding Mom. I said to Chris, one day I'll do one of these talks. And when I get to that point in my talk, I'll have a celebration because I won't get emotional. But I suppose the emotion that you're seeing is a mixture of relief and genuine happiness and contentment, because the journey started again. And for a while I was super mom, and I had a brilliant pregnancy, and I was so healthy, and I was very mindful of energies. So I didn't want the energy and the stress that I was going through in my life being passed on to my son. So what I did was really focus on my self-care during my pregnancy. And then after I had the baby, I pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself. But I was doing really well, so I didn't see anything wrong with it. Other people were starting to see the cracks, but I kept thinking, I'm fine, look at me. I'm going to work, I'm up all night, I'm breastfeeding, all is good with the world. I only have one child, isn't this fantastic? But over time, things started to get bad. And then all of a sudden, it was crash bang. And I had very, very bad postnatal depression. And I really wasn't able to cope. And what started to happen was the very simple, ordinary things like feeding the baby and changing the baby became very difficult for me to do. I became very much anxiety-ridden. I wasn't allowed to be on my own with my child, and I went to the doctor. I was put on medication. Again, no one ever mentioned to me, how are you living? What are you eating? Are you going for a walk with your baby? Are you taking any time for yourself? None of this was ever mentioned to me except medication, here you go again. And it was during this time, because it wasn't about me anymore, that I decided I had to figure a way out of this. So I decided then that there had to be more to it, and it led me to where I am today in a wellness journey. I am medication-free, I am sober, I am very content and very happy most of the time, and how I've learned to do this is through a number of different things. But what I've really learned on this journey is that it's balance, and it's small steps. I'm a big, big, big fan of small steps and small changes. So what I believe we need to look at is the whole being all the time. We'll use the term mind, body, and spirit. Some people are uncomfortable with spirit. But really, if one is out of sync, the others are too. And we need to nurture every fiber of our being. So even going for a walk on your own and enjoying being in nature, that's serving your inner being. That's connecting with nature. That's doing something for your spiritual health as well. So we need to look at what we ultimately want, why society is getting so sick, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and how we can help people to help themselves. And this is the part I think is really important, because I outsourced my power for years, always looking for answers in doctors and therapists and everybody else. But you're really the only person that can help yourself. And that was a really big lesson for me to learn. So what do we all want? No matter where you are, no matter who you are all over the world, as human beings, we all want the same thing. We all want to feel happy. We all want to be content. I just came back from a 10-day retreat, and I spoke to so many wonderful people during that time. And they all were there for very different reasons. Less stress in their life, the relationship's gone bad, problem with kids, just lost their job. And at the end of the day, everybody was there looking for answers, but looking to work on themselves, looking to better themselves and their lives. But what did everyone want? They wanted to be content. They wanted to be happy with where they were in their life. But what causes us to feel out of sync? Well, we've heard about tech, which is a huge modern problem. And I actually took 2 weeks off, which I never have done before in my life. And I did think that I would die without my social media. And the first couple of days were difficult. I'm not going to say they weren't. But towards the end, I actually didn't miss it at all. And I was actually dreading coming back to work on Monday, because a lot of my job is on social media. But what's happened this time is, what I've noticed is, this week alone, I haven't been on my phone when my son gets home from school all the time. And he has noticed. He's 5. And he said, Mom, you're not on your phone at all anymore. And that wasn't even conscious. That's because I didn't have it for 2 weeks. I came back, I was using it for work during the day, and I just wasn't back in that really forceful habit of checking if every notification comes in, if it's really important. But it's a whole load of things. We're moving too fast. We have far many too distractions, and we're pushing ourselves to breaking point consistently and constantly. And it's up to us to take charge of that. So all of the poor diet, poor lifestyle choices, little or no self-care. My new book is on self-care. And this all leads to stress, less focus, depression, anxiety, sleep problems, relationship issues, and much, much more. But how can we help? And here it's really, how can we help ourselves? But we need to encourage people to find their own formula. I always say, what you feed yourself and how you treat yourself will directly affect how you look and feel. There's simply no escaping that. You cannot put bad food in your body and expect it to run efficiently. Would your car run if you put diesel in a petrol car every day? No, it would just be ridiculous. So you wouldn't get in your car in the morning with absolutely no petrol in it and expect it to run. But that's what most of us do with our mind and bodies every day. We don't fuel it correctly, we don't treat ourselves nicely, yet we expect ourselves to function at an optimal level. That's just unrealistic to expect. So we need to eat better, we need to think more positively, and I always say small happiness habits make such a big difference. It doesn't have to take much time, but like changing little tiny habits that you have over time will have a huge effect on your overall health and well-being. And it has a domino effect as well on the people you love, on your friends and your family, and if you're a parent, your children will notice too. So I always say, big warning, small changes can lead to increased confidence and happiness. But this is what keeps me well. And it's a little bit of everything. And what I've learned over time is that we're trying to strike a balance, but that doesn't mean that we want the scales to be weighed, exactly the same. We need to have a lot of movement within this balance. And at different times of our life, our formulas are going to be changing. When you're pregnant, your formula is different to when you have a baby. When you're a young teenager and you're doing exams, what you need is different. When you become a bit older, your formula will change as you change. When you're in a more demanding job, there's things you'll have to give up. I always say be careful about using the word sacrifice, because I always say it's choices. My family used to say to me, I went back to college last year and I was studying, and at the same time I was writing a book and I was doing exams. And they always say, God, you're sacrificing an awful lot. And I said, I don't think it'll be like that. I'm making choices now that will benefit me in the future. I don't think that's a sacrifice at all. And it's about making choices that benefit you now, but that are going to help you in the future. And it's how you perceive things. But the most important thing is taking back control for yourself. I have daily happiness habits that I encourage everyone to do. I write a gratitude journal every morning, myself and my son every night. It's actually the only way of getting information out of him, I've noticed. When I say to him, what happened in school today? He'll say nothing. What's the teacher saying? Nothing. I'm like, what am I sending you there for? You do absolutely nothing all day. So at night I'd say, what's the one thing you're most grateful for today? And he'll say, I'm grateful for I had that ice cream, Mum. I'm grateful that you got me this. And all of a sudden, he's bringing up all these things that were wonderful that day, and I get to share it with him. But it's really making our brains focus on what we do have and not on what we don't have. And it's a very natural thing to focus on what went wrong that day. And sometimes when I'm struggling, I'm finding things that are good, as we all do. I'll sit there with my arms crossed, going, it was just a really shit day. I can't think of anything that was right. But then I'll find something that was good, and that one thought will lead me to the next thought that was good, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow, it wasn't a bad day at all. But more exciting is that we have the science to back this up. You're actually rewiring your brain by keeping a gratitude journal, by focusing on things that are good in your life. And I think it's really exciting to know that we can rewire our brain at any stage, that our brain is malleable. We're not stuck in our story. We can change our story. For years I thought I was stuck in my story. And I was really so badly stuck in it that I got worse and worse. And I didn't ever see a way out, and I didn't see that I could get better. And I'm so excited that I'm standing here today and that I feel great. And I know if I can be well, anyone can be well. I was told I'd be stuck with depression and anxiety for the rest of my life, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And I think we fear the brain, and we fear people with depression and anxiety, and we talk about removing the stigma, but it's still there. It is very much still there. It's something you can't see. You know, you wouldn't have someone come into A&E suffering from mental health, or if they had a broken arm saying, sorry, there's a waiting list for 6 months to see someone, your broken arm will just have to wait. We wouldn't expect people to be in that much pain and to have to go on waiting lists, but we do in this country, and it's not really getting much better. So there's a difference between talking about it and doing something about it. But wake up every day and start your day with intention. This is really, really powerful. I used to wake up and stumble out of bed and go over and put on the coffee pot and have a coffee. And now I wake up with intention every day, and the first thing I say is thank you. And I say it a couple of times as I put my feet in the ground, because I mean it. Because I'm so grateful to feel good. My bad days now are good days compared to what I used to feel like. And even if I am slipping, which did happen a few weeks ago after my book came out, I'm able to pull myself back that little bit quicker than I was before. We're all on this journey together. We're all in a lifelong journey where we all want the best for ourselves and each other, and we all want to feel well. And it's a journey that we become, sometimes we'll be very good at, and sometimes we won't be so good at. But it's about being a little bit kinder to yourself. Because what I noticed is when I started to treat myself better, I began to really value myself. And when I started to value myself, very sadly, I looked back on my life and thought, wow, I was never really very kind to myself before. How many of us get up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, my God, you look awful, that dress looks so awful on you? And that's what I did for most of my life as a model. And when I started to value myself, I wanted to treat myself better. And this had a knock-on effect on my health, my wellness, my abilities as a parent, and how I work and how I live. So it's up to you to find your own formula, but there's so many different things here that you can pull from. And finding what works for you, as even Chris said earlier, is really important. So gratitude, like I said, look at all the things that gratitude can do. Less stress, difficult tasks become easier, mental strength, just be, increases empathy. Who doesn't want all of that in their life? Simple, healthy eating tips. My rule is keep it real, keep it simple. We have so many conflicting books and information out there, and what I want people to do is start eating real food. Stop eating processed packaged food, sugary cereals, make food at home. If you're time poor, freeze it for the week, so that when you get home in the evening and you're tired, you have fresh, healthy food there. Just start changing your choices. Start changing the choices about yourself, about how you speak to yourself, and you'll want to treat yourself better with food and exercise. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate is the one thing I'm going to pick out there. It's so important for all of us. So reasons to live a healthier lifestyle, they're all listed there behind you. And who doesn't want all of these things that I've listed there? Better mood, better quality of life, increased optimism, better sleep, better concentration, self-love, self-worth. And nothing changes if you don't. Remember that. And thank you.
Thank you, Ali.